Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Debrief, where we discuss all of the latest football news and gossip. My name is Megan Fish and we have an action-packed show ahead of us this afternoon as things really start to heat up towards the end of the season. We are joined by the Anfield Wrap's own Kieran as we talk about this week's football news ahead of this weekend's games as the title race is truly underway and as the fight for Champions Leagues really takes charge. But before we get into today's podcast, let me introduce my co-host and partner in crime, Freya Rathbone.
Hi guys.
So the first topic of conversation is Liverpool's win on Sunday. Do you think that they were poor, and is it the worst half of football you've ever seen?
Oh, well, it was definitely poor. Whether it was the worst half of football I've ever seen, I'm not too sure, because I've seen some bad halves from Liverpool where we've conceded lots of goals. We were bad, and I mean we were really bad. We couldn't string a pass together in the first half. But I always say, it doesn't matter how bad you play if you come away with the points, and we did come away with the points. But yeah, the first half was just so bad. I mean, I know things changed just before kick-off. We lost Florian Wirtz in the warm-up. Now how much that changes, how we play and our tactics and our setup, etc. But having said that, does that really affect how you can pass a ball? Does that really affect, playing so deep and generally looking poor, as you said? So whether it was the worst half of football, I don't know, but it was definitely the worst half of football I've seen from Liverpool this season.
Yeah, you said obviously we lost Florian Wirtz in the warm-up, and then obviously we put Jones and Szoboszlai out. Do you think that was a mistake from Slot putting Jones at right back and Szoboszlai in midfield?
Well, he started the game with Szoboszlai at right back and Jones in midfield, and then he switched it halfway through the half. I'll be honest with you, I would have kept Szoboszlai at right back, based on the fact that he can almost bridge the gap between the defence, midfield and the forwards. He's probably the best right back in the squad, even when everyone's fit. But it didn't work. It didn't look good at all. So that's why he's put Jones in there. But he ends up switching it back. So moving forward, obviously we know we're going to get Frimpong back soon. But whether he plays Szoboszlai at right back or Jones at right back, it's got to get better regardless.
Yeah. Obviously, the second half we were much better. We come out better. Nottingham Forest significantly seemed to dip in the second half. They weren't as good as they were in the first half. We scored 2 goals, one of them was offside. What do you think about the decision being made for it being offside?
It's a tough one really, because we can talk about the rules, and within the rules of the game it is offside. If it hits any part of your arm and goes into the back of the net, then he's going to rule it out. But do I believe that should be the case? No. I mean, if you're facing the goal and your arm's out, then yeah. If you're turning round and your arm's out, then yeah. But if you've jumped with your back to the goal and your arm's in and it struck you there, personally, I don't think that should be ruled out. But by the laws of the game, the referee has made the right decision. But whether that's the right decision for football, I don't know. But we've seen that several times this season. There's so many rules that are creeping into the game now where you think, is that for the good of the game? So yeah, I mean, I was disappointed because I thought it was a winner. But then again, it doesn't really matter because a couple of minutes later, we go and do it again. And I actually thought that one was going to get ruled out as well. Looking at the replay, as soon as the replay went on the screen, I went, oh no, he's offside. But he wasn't. The toe of the Forest player was playing him on. And we, get a dramatic last-minute winner and walk away with all 3 points.
Obviously, Hugo Ekitike missed the header just before the goal. Do you think that that's like a massive issue that he missed that, or do you think it's like something that could be worked on?
I think he should score. I had this debate with Neil yesterday. He's praising the keeper and saying it's a great save, and I do think it's a great save, but I also think he should be hitting the back of the net. I expect him 9 times out of 10 to put that ball in. I think both things can be true. I think it's fair to say it was a great save by the goalkeeper, but I'm not going to sit in and say, he shouldn't score, because he definitely should have scored and buried it. And if he does that, then there's no need for McAllister to put it in. But again, this is all in hindsight now because, we got the 3 points. But is it an issue? I mean, I don't know how good Ekitike is in the air. We've not seen him bang loads of headers in by any stretch of the imagination. But he's still a young player. He's still got things to learn. And what we've seen of him so far, I'm really impressed with. I actually think he's got more attributes to his game than, say, Alexander Isak, who we paid a lot more money for. I mean, Ekitike, he's got better feet. He looks like he's faster. There's all sorts of things that I can list. Isak has proven it, though. And that's the reason why we paid the money for, because we know, once he's not injured and once he gets a run of games or a good 6 months under his belt at Liverpool, he probably will end up being a top scorer for the club. He might be the top scorer in the league, and we've seen him do that for Newcastle. We've seen him do that against us for Newcastle several times. He's terrorised Liverpool in a Newcastle shirt. So, but yeah, I'm not going to get too harsh on Ekitike's heading, because it's something that can be improved on based on what we've seen at the weekend. But let's judge it towards the end of the season.
Obviously, Slot made a very strong choice by taking Gakpo and Salah off at the same time. Very strong to say that he didn't like the way they were playing. He brought on Rio Ngumoha, 17, and obviously I believe he had a better 15-20 minutes than both of them had the entire game. Do you think he should be playing more for Liverpool?
Well, I think it was a statement from the manager to pull both of them off at the same time. It's not something that usually happens if you make substitutions. Don't get me wrong, I know managers make double subs, but to hook both of your wingers at the same time when they've both been, in my opinion, pretty poor in the game, that was a statement from the manager. And we know he doesn't love to use Chiesa so much, and you know he's held Rio back for one reason or another, which we'll probably get into in a second. So I think it was a statement from the manager. I agree with you. I think he done more. And what Carragher said on Sky, by the way, I think he done more than Gakpo and Salah in 15-20 minutes than Gakpo and Salah did in the 70-odd minutes that they were on the pitch. They were flat, they were poor. If I was a Nottingham Forest fullback, I wouldn't have felt scared. I wouldn't have felt like it was coming. And once we made that change to, brought Rio Ngumoha on, he was so direct. He was full of energy. And we've seen that from him already this season. He comes on at St James's Park early in the season and gets the winner. And then the times we have seen him play, he looks bright, he looks direct, he wants to get at the defender. I think that's what Liverpool need at the minute. We need someone who can make something happen. Whether he should be playing more, there'll be a debate there, because there'll be sports scientists and there'll be football people who are saying, look, you don't play a 17-year-old that much, and if you do, there's a risk of injury, there's a risk of burnout, there's a risk of hampering his career, because we've seen it before with players like Michael Owen. Michael Owen won a Ballon d'Or at 18. At 17 he was in Liverpool's side. He couldn't get past 26 without serious injuries season on season. On the other hand, we've seen players like Messi, who's played at 17 and then carried on playing right through. But Slot makes an interesting point. Rio Ngumoha's played more Premier League minutes than anyone else his age, and I was really surprised by that when he said that after the match. So it's a question. There's probably a balance and a sweet spot somewhere in between the two, because on one hand, if you're playing too much and you start him every week, then you could risk injury. You could risk. I think the manager made reference to stress fractures that Jadon Danns has actually suffered from overtraining and playing too much. So they try and keep Rio Ngumoha off the pitch a couple of days a week. So there's finding that balance, and again, that's a question for the sports scientists. It's a question for the real football people who know more about that than me. But having said that, there's an old saying: if you're good enough, you're old enough. And if he can play, and from a biology perspective, it's not going to hurt him too much to play more minutes. I don't think there's many Liverpool fans who'd be arguing they'd like to see him in the starting 11 over Cody Gakpo at the minute, for example, who I won't say has struggled, but he's not hit the form that he hit last year. We see him a little bit predictable from both sides, from Gakpo's side and Salah's side. We've got opportunity with the cup game at Wolves. I think Rio will play in that. Whether he plays in the Wolves game just before that or at West Ham at the weekend, it'll be interesting, because, as I say, there's a lot of people who are going to call for it now based on what we've seen at Forest at the weekend. He came on, he looked bright. It wasn't just the fact that he was getting past his defender, he was coming into the middle of the pitch and he was finding Chiesa on the left-hand side. So it's a tough one. I personally would like to see more of him now. I do think I lean on the side of if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I've seen 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, I've seen your Wayne Rooney's, etc. come through and have great careers. But it's just about finding that balance and manager, because the last thing that I want to happen is to overplay him, or even worse, put him in. If, for example, if you put him in a couple of months ago when Liverpool lost 6 games on the bounce, to start a 17-year-old kid then and say, right, you fix it. And that's a little bit too much pressure for me. And if he doesn't play well or doesn't perform, then that could hamper him long term from a mental perspective as well as a physical perspective. So yeah, I'd like to see more of him. Whether he can start games or whether he will start games, I'm not too sure.
Obviously, Rio Ngumoha is like a player that can play on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2 away games at Wolves, one in the Premier League and one in the Cup. Do you think Slot should start him on one side in the Premier League and then on the other side in the Cup and then throw off the defenders, or do you think just play him in the Cup?
Yeah, I do, to be honest, because it gives you the sort of measuring stick to see where he's at. One on both sides, but also against the team. For example, if you play him on the Tuesday night in the league game and he does okay, Wolves will have an opportunity to go away and assess that and train for it and say, look, Rio done this, Rio done that. And then if he can go and do it again at the weekend, then it's a decent measuring stick to show he can do it consistently. It goes back to the question about minutes though, and how long he can actually play in both of them games. I mean, I do think he'd definitely start the cup game. Whether he starts the league game or whether he comes on, I don't know. I'd actually like to see it the way around though, as opposed to just coming on 80 minutes or 70 minutes. I'd like to see him start and maybe get a half. And if he can do 45 minutes, Liverpool could find themselves 1 or 2-0 up by that point because of how dangerous the kid is. So it's definitely an opportunity to look at him twice back-to-back in a week against the same team and sort of, like I say, use that as a bit of a measuring stick to see where he's at and what he's capable of.
So the controversy with VAR, there's been a lot of it this season. There's been a lot come out saying the day after saying it should have been a red or a goal. This weekend we've had 3 major incidents. Bernardo Silva at Newcastle. It was a 2-1 victory for City. Newcastle got their first goal since 2018. Bernardo Silva made a reckless challenge on Dan Burn and got a yellow for it, and it's come out yesterday that he should have been sent off. What are your opinions on how VAR handled that?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, there's been a debate about VAR since it came in, and what is a clear and obvious error versus what's not a clear and obvious error, and it seems that there's too much said after the fact. If I think it's a red card. We just watched the clip before we done the show, and I do think it's a red card, but it wasn't given. It's how you sort of you combat this, because, like I say, a clear and obvious error to one person is not a clear and obvious error to another person. But the fact sometimes it takes so long is another issue, and that's one of the main reasons, or one of the main problems that people have with VAR, is as a supporter and as a fan on the ground, sometimes you can be stood there for 2, 3, 4 minutes waiting to find out what's happening. You don't even know what's happening. I found myself in the ground texting people at home, being like, what are they saying on the telly about this? Is it offside? Is it onside? Is it last man? Is it not last man? So I'm not going to try and come up with a solution, but I do think there needs to be a bit of reform and a bit of change on that, because 1, it spoils the experience for fans, and 2, too many mistakes are being made by VAR and by referees on the pitch. Whether we can introduce some sort of time limit to review things, whether that's say for 20, 30 seconds, the VAR have to make that decision. Because if we're offside, for example, I know we're talking about a foul here, but offside, for example, sometimes you can zoom in and you can take so long to try and find millimetres of detail. That to me isn't clear and obvious. We'd like to see games flow better. We'd like to see moments happen. So yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by it. We keep seeing it this season, but not just this season. We've seen it last season, the season before. Too many mistakes are just being made.
Another one was the North London derby. Obviously, Spurs had just got a new manager. It was at home, and everybody was sort of hoping Spurs could help everybody out a little bit, stop Arsenal. They stopped the game to fix the referee's microphone because he couldn't communicate with his linesman. And they stopped the game for 6 minutes. in the 5th minute, and it took the speed out of the game. And then we go on to the fact that Gabriel dives before Spurs get their second goal, and their goal gets disallowed, so it could have been 2-2, which could have changed the complete turnaround of the game. It could have given Spurs a bit more energy. Again, that's another mistake by VAR. So how would you combat that one about the dives?
You're looking for me for a lot of answers here to solve one of the biggest issues in football. I mean, the first point you made about the microphone is a technical issue, which again, we've seen that. I've seen that in Liverpool games before. I don't know how at this level, when there's so much riding on game, there's so much money in the game, how we can have technical issues 5 minutes into a football match. And there is a technical issue 5 minutes into a football match, how it can't be fixed straight away. I'm sure now if one of our microphones cut off for a second, Andy, who's producing, would be able to sort it in a minute, and we'd be back running. But on a Premier League level, in a game like that on Sky, how we can have technical issues that aren't solved quick enough is beyond me. The foul, I don't think was a foul. I seen it at the time and I thought, you know what, he's jumped there. He's made him out of it. And I did think when it went to VAR, they'd look at it and say, you know, he's dived there. But again, the people in charge here didn't think so. So how do you combat it? Better referees, better referees on the VAR. But that's not something that can be fixed overnight. That's something that's probably going to take years to fix. There's conversations always about getting people involved in refereeing who have played the game. The standard of refereeing through training, the incentive to be a referee, that's a financial incentive as well. You know, if you're an ex-footballer now, why would you ever do it? Why would you put yourself on the line? And we know everyone in football loves the game, but there's a financial package associated with every role that's in it. And there's not a huge incentive to be a referee if you've been a football player or a football manager, because what comes with it is a mountain of pressure and a mountain of stick every time you get a decision wrong. So there's probably a few angles to address it. Definitely we need a better standard through training, etc. But also we just need more people involved in refereeing who understand the game a little bit better.
What's your opinions on VAR? Because I know we've had this conversation before and it's always led to the same outcome. But what are your opinions?
I just think it's so frustrating, like as you said, like the amount of money that goes into the clubs, and we're having technical issues. I just think it's like round the bend. Like I can't get my head around it. I just think it's ridiculous. And it affects the game constantly. Like you're waiting in the stands, as you said, you're frustrated, wanting to know what's going on. I just think, it's ridiculous.
Well, on a more positive note, James Milner, one of the most iconic players I think I've seen play for Liverpool. I think he was one of my favourites. He was the first person I got on the back of my shirt when I asked for it.
I like that.
James Milner. He made history in the Premier League by getting his 654th appearance in the competition. He overtook Gareth Barry's record. And I just think the career he's had is probably one of the best we've seen.
It's so deserved as well.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best we've seen in the Premier League. How could you describe James Milner?
He's definitely a legend, not just of Liverpool. I mean, I think every club he's been at has a huge amount of respect for James Milner. And he's a player that's bridged the gap between what I will call older generation of Premier League footballers right up to the modern day. You know, he's worked with so many different managers, but comes from an era, I think he talks about this in his post-match, where he comes from an era where tackles used to be harsher. You know, the game was completely different in the 90s compared to what it is now, and he's managed to be someone who has played both sides of that game but progressed with it, to go from, you know, a 17 or 16-year-old player at Leeds to what he ends up winning leagues at Manchester City, and then he moves to Liverpool and gets better. And I think what has stood him in good stead is his ability to playing multiple positions. He's not the type of footballer who wants to be the main man. He's always there for his club, and you've seen that in the Klopp period with Liverpool, where he could play at right back, he could play at left back, he could play in midfield. You know, he's probably been further up the pitch at times for Liverpool as well. So he's an ultimate professional. We know that. Everyone who talks about him so highly. The way he trains, the way he looks after younger players, and obviously he's kept himself super fit as well. I mean, there's not many. How old is he now? Is he 36 or something like that? Anyone can tell me exactly how old he is? I'm going to guess there, but there's not many players who can still operate at that level, having played so many minutes and so many games in the Premier League. And I don't think he's done yet. I mean, the way the Brighton manager talks about him at the minute, he talks about him so highly. The fact that he's a valued member of the squad, and he's playing in Premier League games at his age. And I have total respect for the man, especially for what he done at Liverpool. He's 40. I was 4 years off 40. That is crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So he's been playing football for a hell of a long time. And like I say, 40 years of age and playing in the Premier League at the standard that the league is at now, you know, the fitness that's required to play in the Premier League. He jokes about it. You know, he's not a drinker. He looks after his body. I think he makes a joke about loving Ribena. You know, he's obviously kept himself super fit and super clean over the years, and what that's resulted in is a career where he's won everything there is to win, and he's still now operating at the highest level.
I was going to say, I wonder if he had a Ribena to celebrate. You said before about James Milner, you said he was an ultimate professional in everything he does.
I think he's someone to look up to. Like, for younger players now to look up to someone like him, I think it's just amazing what he does. I think it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And our final topic is the title race. Now, I think this is probably one of the closest title races we've had in years. It was always, you could get to maybe February time and you'd be like, we knew Liverpool was going to win it last season, we knew City were going to win it the season before. Where do you think it'll go? Do you think it'll go to the Etihad when they both play each other?
Yeah, I hope so. I'll be honest with you, I don't want Arsenal to win the league.
We'll never hear the end of it if they do.
Well, there's that, and there's also, I just don't think they look like Premier League champions, and I'll be gutted. You know, Liverpool aren't in the race. Let's get the elephants out of the room first. Liverpool aren't in this race, and that hurts me because I look at Arsenal and I think we're better than them. We just haven't performed like it. I don't particularly like Arteta. I'm not going to say don't rate him, because obviously he's performed with Arsenal and he's gradually got better with them over the years, and he has had them in title races, and to do that you've got to be an half decent manager. But you look at some of the things that he does, you know, bringing the light bulb into the dressing room and bringing the speakers onto the training pitch, it just feels a little bit forced, to be honest. And I'll be honest with you, like I said, when I'm watching them play football, I've seen Arsenal sides that look so much better than this one. I feel they've played on the way the league is this year, with the long throws and the set pieces and the time wasting. And there's also an element of Arsenal, you know, they've won 9 league titles. Is it 9 or 10? I think it's 9 league titles. They're a proper side. And there's something about Man City winning the league which doesn't bother me, I'll be honest with you. Even though if they keep winning it, they'll keep, you know, racking them up and eventually be right behind Liverpool. We don't want that to happen, but there's just something about Man City winning the league. It comes down to the amount of money that they spend, you know, the cheating allegations, the charges, all the stuff that goes with it. If they win the league, it just doesn't bother me that much. And that's been the case even when Liverpool have been in the title race with them. I've watched Liverpool get 97 points and not win the title. And don't get me wrong, it hurt me, but if that would have happened against Manchester United, it'd have been so much worse. It would have happened against Arsenal, it'd have been so much worse. There's just something about City winning the league, because, like I say, the amount of money that they spend and the way they operate as a football club, it just hurts me a little bit less. If Arsenal win the league, as you say, they won't stop banging on about it, and that's not the bit that I'm bothered about, because I don't stop banging on about when Liverpool win the league. It's the fact that they can get better, and I think if they don't win the league this year, being however many points they were in front, between 11 and 13 points at one point they were in front, I think there'll be pressure on Arteta to leave. I think the Arsenal fans will be so hurt by it, and they don't take bad news badly, they don't take draws well, they don't take losses well, their heads fall off a little bit. So there's that element of, if Arsenal don't do it this year, you could see Arteta out of a job, and that project goes back to square one, and they have to start rebuilding. And that for me just sort of puts them back a little bit, and we can go fresh at the league next year and fight with Man City for it.
I mean, Chelsea lost points to Burnley, they drew. And then, obviously, Villa dropped to Leeds, and then City go away to Leeds this weekend. Do you think City will drop points at Leeds, or do you think they'll realise that Arsenal dropped points against Brentford and Wolves and just go for it?
It's a mad one with Man City because of the title race at the minute is not the Man City that we're used to. But we know at any point Man City can put together a run of wins. And I do think there'll be a little element of smell and blood with Arsenal. They'll know now they've got an opportunity to keep the pressure on. And we're still only in February. There's a long way out. If there was, there's a few games left, you could probably think that Arsenal might be able to, dig in and get it over the line. But I think there's a long way to go. And if City keep winning, I do think the pressure will get to Arsenal.
Finally, who do you think will win the Premier League?
Man City.
Who do you
I'm
think?
hoping Man City.
And I'm hoping Man City. Well, thank you for listening to the first ever podcast of The Debrief. I'm Megan Fish. I've been joined by Freya Rathbone and Kieran. Thank you.
Thank you.